have the best freaking job in the world, talking poker with my friends every Monday night at 7:30 Eastern, live on YouTube. Join us for free, and you can win a prize just for showing up. Now, we're having some fun tonight on the show before we even get started. We're going to be speaking to Katie Stone in just a moment. I'm excited for that conversation. But first, I'm proud to share that we're brought to you by Running Aces. They are the official sponsor of the RecPoker podcast. Most of what we do here is free. We're a largely volunteer-based organization. So we really depend on support from our sponsors and from our premium members who take part in our training materials, study opportunities for only $22 a month. We have the best theme song in the world that we're super excited about because Peter Trulin, who is near and dear to all of our hearts, has done a great job getting us that fantastic bumper music. Now, I was going to say, you can get your first month of premium membership for only $5 by using the code RecPoker at checkout. But you know we love supporting local food banks around here. So if you make a donation of any amount to your local food bank and send us the receipt, we'll happily send you your first month of premium membership at RecPoker for free as a way of saying thanks for helping out your fellow humans. Now, speaking of fellow humans, you get used to hearing my voice because they let me host the show on Mondays, but I'm only one man, and it takes a crew to make all the magic happen around here. Sometimes it's more magical than others. It's amazing what we get up to. We call our leadership panel the Wrecking Crew, and if you want to learn more about me or the rest of the Wrecking Crew, you can go to rec.poker/crew, or you can just listen up. You're going to meet a few of them on the show here tonight. We've got a full house with Rob Washam, Chris Jones, Joe Coolis, Kim Kilroy, Lorianne Persinger, our visible producer, Rob Gardner. Sorry, we're having some technical difficulties here tonight, but we're having a freaking fantastic time. That cannot be debated. All right, we're going to talk to Katie Stone in just a second. But first, I just want to sort of go over what we kind of got up to this week with the rest of the Wrecking Crew here. Personally, my day job is kicking my butt this week. I'm doing a bunch of behind the scenes paperwork stuff. RecPoker has been had a bunch of cool stuff happening. So there's been a bunch of behind the scenes admin stuff with that. I haven't been doing a lot of poker, but I've been busy and I'm glad to be on the right side of the grass. I can say that much. One thing I have been doing is I've been in the booth with last week with Lorianne Persinger, this week with Ryan LaPlante for Marek Madness, which has been super, super fun. Our bracket style tournament series that's going on all throughout the month of March. And then in April, it's going to be time for our Go for the Gold tournament for all our silver pin winners as a chance to go for the gold and win they'll be in the third ever RecPoker Gold pin. So let me see. We were talking before, some of our members have had a chance to also be playing pretty well. Rob Washam, you made it to the final four of Marek Madness. You must be feeling a little nervous with Tuesday night in the sights.
Yeah, tomorrow night it's we're down to the final four, and that's pretty exciting. I don't know how I did it because I play in this local game here in my retirement community, and I haven't sniffed the money since December. So I mean, and we play a couple times a week. So it's been I've been on a very long losing streak, but Fortunately, I'm doing pretty good in the heads up Marek Madness so far. We'll see what happens tomorrow.
There you go. You got to stop teaching all those folks how to play poker so well, Rob. You're natural at this coaching stuff. So they're catching up to you. I think that's the problem.
Could be.
Chris Jones, you've been playing a little live as well. Is live poker dead? Like Rob says, everyone's too good now.
Live poker isn't dead. I played this weekend. Saw some good friends of RecPoker. Saw Daniel Kennedy, Eric Ebson, Rob Adsom. I know Taylor Moss played well and went pretty deep. He played a different day than I. But I just wanted to share one hand that I saw. This was we're kind of getting into the mid stages of this tournament. Not in the money yet. But there's two players who have over 100 big blinds. They're doing pretty well. I'm sitting there with 30. Cutoff limps. He's got I think like 125 big blinds. And the big blind just, says, yeah, let's see 3. So they both have like 120 big blinds here. Flop comes Jack of Hearts, 10 of Hearts, 3 of Spades. And the big blind leads out for 2 big blinds. The cutoff jams for 120 big blinds. And the big blind calls. And the big blind flips over ace queen with no heart. And the cutoff had Jack 5 of diamonds. There was a queen on the turn, so the ace queen won. But it was quite a hand. I was impressed.
Poker confirmed, alive and well.
Yeah.
At least live poker. Joe Coolis, you've been playing more online lately. How's the online game treating you?
Well, I mean, Chris's story is certainly resplendent on Club WPT because that's where I've been playing. And if anybody really wants to feel good about their poker game, all you got to do is drop some money on there and spend just a little bit of time, playing, nut peddling on that site, and you will realize how great you really are at poker. It's done wonders for my confidence, in fact. So I'm feeling much better about my play.
I'm glad to hear it. It's true. The games that you want to play in, nut peddling is a big part of it. You don't get to practice those like super sophisticated bluffs like we talk about on the show that often, but getting value hands paid, that is a valuable skill. And I want to remind folks, if you're trying out Club WPT Gold, I would love it if you use the code RECP for sign up, RECP. That helps us out a lot. And yeah, I've heard that there are some games there you want to get into. Kim Kilroy, when are they going to get Club WPT Gold in Canada so you and I can play along?
Yeah, I know, right? Like I can't play on WPT Gold. What is that?
Yeah. What the hell?
But
what have you been doing?
But I can play on PokerStars Ontario, and wearing green today, not just because of St. Paddy's Day, but I won a package to the Irish Poker Open last night on PokerStars Ontario. So
amazing.
That was very exciting after coming very close the last 2 times I played it. So I got it.
You got some flights, some accommodation money, a main event seat.
Yep, package money, main event seat, and raring to go. I went down and bought some extra euro today, so I'm all almost all packed and ready to go.
Amazing!
Congratulations!
Thank you.
How much is that package worth? Like, what was the buy-in, and how much is the package worth?
The buy-in was $100. It was only one package for all the players. And it was worth about 4,000 Canadian.
Fantastic.
One package? How many players did you beat?
All of them.
40?
Oh,
I bet all of them.
You got to narrow it down, be a little more specific.
That doesn't matter. It could have just been 2, but
I think it was 40 something. The biggest
impressive.
Here's my biggest impressive feat was I was losing. I had lost a big flip, and I was losing 120 big blinds. I had 9 big blinds. And I came back and won. So
that's the kind of comeback we saw from Rob Washam in a certain match in Marek Madness a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. Amazing. Tenacious.
and yes, twice.
It's called cockroaching.
I'm not sore though. I'm not sore.
I don't want to rub any salt in the wound there.
Yeah, that's right. She's not salty.
Like you bounced back really nicely. Lorianne, nice to hear from you as always. What have you been getting up to?
I think last we spoke, or last I was on here, I mentioned that I would be trying out for the dance team. Okay, I know most people probably heard of our 2 back-to-back world champion Las Vegas Aces WNBA team. Well, they have a dance team. Well, they actually have 2, but the one I was interested in is a over 50 dance team called the High Rollers. And 2 weeks ago, we had an audition, which I wisely decided to wait almost until the very last minute to decide to do. But in all honesty, I didn't find out about it till about 2 weeks before the audition. Long story short, or long story long, there was 2 days of auditions. We started with, I think, about 140, 150 players. You can tell I have poker on the brain. 140, 150 people. The highest number was 204, but there was like a break in the middle. So I'm guessing, like I said, about 140, 150 there we go with players again. I can't get poker out of my vocabulary.
That's why we love you.
I'm not sure that's why, but that was the initial audition, and they invited about 50 of us back the very next day on Sunday for the follow-up, and that included 20 of the returning veterans as well. So I got close, but not close enough. But I had an absolute blast, even though I didn't make the final 20. I think what killed me was they wanted us to do what's called a freestyle. And I, to be honest, was not prepared for that, because I didn't find out the night before about 10:30 that I'd even made it to the finals for the next day. So I woke up that morning and put together like a little quick 8 count, but some of the other people that were auditioning, they were doing like splits and cartwheels, things that I was able to do 20 years ago that I wasn't even going to try. But I enjoyed it so much that I will definitely be auditioning again next year and will prepare well in
Nice.
advance. In fact, I've already started preparing now, stretching it because I can do the splits again and one arm cartwheels and have little tricks that I could do to show off. Because
There
like
you
I said,
go.
it was an absolute blast. So
Nice. Oh, good for
that's
you.
what I
And
did. No poker, but I did that.
Well, speaking of an absolute blast, I think we're going to have a freaking great time with Katie Stone on the show tonight. So, Katie is actually a returning guest. Katie was first on the show several years ago in our Women in Poker series, back when that was the kind of thing that you did series is about, as opposed to just having women on the show regularly and just frequently talking about women's issues like we should all be doing anyway. But Katie, first of all, I want to say thanks for coming back on the RecPoker podcast.
Yeah, it's nice to see you guys again. You've grown quite a bit. There's a lot more
We
people.
have. Yep, it's true, and it's a group effort, that's for sure. Like I said at the top, people get used to hearing my voice, but it's definitely a group effort over here. We do it together. You've worn a lot of hats in the poker industry. You've been a player, a coach. You've done commentary. You've done some writing. If people somehow haven't heard of Katie Stone, I'd like to open every interview by asking, so how would you define your own role in the poker world today?
Well, today, believe it or not, I'm a recreational player, which is really amazing.
It's the best. It's the best.
I definitely, I see the light. I'm converted, whether I like it or not. But yeah, I mean, I for a long time was in the gaming bubble, and it's really easy to get pretty deep in there into your own little world. And, I think I always had a good perspective overall, on the industry, but these last few years that I've kind of been out of the industry. So May of 22, I guess, is when I fully transitioned into like my new role here in Houston, which is essentially taking over the family business. My mom passed away in Houston, and she was during COVID, and she was a very beloved and a very popular broadcaster and philanthropist here in Houston for over 2 decades. And so it was something that I took a few years to kind of slowly step into this role here in Houston, essentially managing the nonprofit as well as the broadcast platform, which is, local network television, but it is mainstream. And so the last few years, I've had a much broader experience in a few other realms. And so that just gives me an even, more interesting perspective on everything that's going on right now. I mean, I was primarily an online poker player, but I had a pretty unique peek into the, other side of, both online gaming and brick and mortar, live gaming, because of my work with BetMGM in the early days of federal gaming legislation in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just kind of an all hands on deck. These were land-based casinos and companies that had never had any online gaming before. And so it was just like, who the hell knows what's going on? You've been doing this for over 10 years. Good. You're hired, kind of thing. And so, because of that experience, and then now just these last few years of, not only, hosting, but producing a mainstream television show, most days of the week, having a graphics team, a PR team, production staff, in addition to managing one of the city's, most widely appreciated and attended charitable events here in Houston every year. I have a few thoughts these days.
Yes. Well, we're gonna get into a lot of those subjects actually. So I'm glad that you brought that up. I know our YouTube chatters are going to get some questions in there, and we've got some questions of our own. But first, we're going to open the action with our speed round. So, Katie Stone, This is a series of rapid fire questions. They're mostly about poker. I want your answers to be quick and short and honest, but you can say pass. I don't want to put you in a very uncomfortable position, but I do want to put you on the spot. So we are going to open the action with Katie Stone. Let's get started. The first question is an easy one. What is your favorite poker hand?
Oh, ace.
Is poker a gamble or a skill game?
Skill game.
What's your biggest poker pet peeve?
Biggest poker pet peeve would be bad beat stories.
Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Oh, wait, say that again?
Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Yes.
Dogs or cats?
Oh my God, cats.
Is Ace King a drawing hand?
No.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
No.
Live or online?
Oh my gosh, live.
What's one thing you're afraid of?
Plane crashes.
Should vacations be lazy or busy?
Lazy.
Re-entry or freeze out?
Freeze out.
What's one thing you complain about in your life?
Traffic.
Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Oh yes, just last night for dinner.
Nice. Me too, actually. Name one player you respect.
Oh, Stevie Chidwick.
Yellow light coming up. Slow down or speed up?
Slow down.
Who is your poker nemesis?
Oh.
Getting close. Tick, tick, tick.
I can't remember the screen name. There's a screen name. I can't remember it.
Moving on. Are you pro chop or no chop?
I'm pro chop.
Name one musical artist that you enjoy.
The Killers.
What hand would you never 3-bet with?
What hand would I never 3-bet with? Oh, 7-4 offsuit.
Okay, all right. That was a good one. We got through a lot of questions there, Katie. That was really well done. I'm going to let our algorithmic solver work in the background and tell us what your score is by the end of the episode. But I'd be prepared for a very high score. That was very impressive.
I kind of lied on that last one though. So I very much lied on that last one.
No comment. We're moving on. So I just want to mention everyone who's here in the YouTube chat, fantastic. Thank you for joining us here for the show every Monday. One of the perks is you get to type your questions in. We'll make sure to ask them of Katie. We can't ensure that she answers them, but we will ask them. And we're also going to be looking for some players' names or industry people's names to play Stake Study Stack later in the show. And of course, stick around for a food bank raffle at the end of the show. We'll be giving away real prizes after the interview. So get your questions in, suggest some Stake Study Stack names, and stick around at the end where we do our food bank raffle. Now, we have some questions from the panel here. Lorianne Persinger, why don't you start us off? Oh, you're in Somsky mode.
Tim. It might help if I unmute myself.
Somsky's not here. Thank you for filling in. We all appreciate it. Jump in.
Hi, Katie.
Hi.
Hi there. Thanks for joining us. Pretty much over the last 20 years, you've been a recreational player, pro player, worked in commentary and writing, founded Grind Debts. You were also a sponsored pro for Borgata. And for those of us who've never been sponsored or don't know how the process works, can you give a little insight as to how you became a sponsored pro and when this was?
Yeah, so it was after online poker had become regulated in New Jersey for the first time. So this was like end of 2013, 14, 15, and on. I was playing full-time online in New Jersey. My husband and I were living in Mexico post Black Friday. And we came home for Christmas. We both were from New Jersey. So we came home for Christmas, December of 2013. And we weren't really, federal regulation wasn't really on our radar because we were on the West Coast, playing rest of world. Came home for the month and regulation was like 2 weeks old, and we ended up actually just staying. We never went back to Mexico. I mean, we went back, during the summer. But we just like the schedule so much better. And so it just, it was just a very organic, there weren't a ton of female online players, just period, at the time, that were doing it full time and kind of had a presence, just a public presence. And, New Jersey was my home state. So Borgata, I lived in Brigantine, just over the bridge. And so anytime there were tournaments, I was there, and pretty frequent site, at all the bigger events. And it was just just a very organic, like I was very vocal about things that I'd like to see them doing, and things that I thought would help the community and make for a better playing experience for everybody. And long story short, it ended up turning into a consultant gig. So front facing, a lot of the team pro, ambassador, sponsored pro, it's a pretty wide range of responsibilities. It can be anything from, just somebody who's streaming online, and then posting on social media that they're streaming, and they're, posting clips and stuff like that. It can be, a live presence, somebody who's playing live and online and, is patched up and is creating content. But it can also be back end, it can be social media creation. It can be, software functionality, feedback. It can be, just overall game creation and just overall logistical. And so I kind of, was all over. Like I said, it was a new time in online gaming in the US. And so, there was a handful of online players that had a lot of experience that, were able to kind of give feedback and provide perspective on, what we would like to see, what is good, what's not good, what would help, that kind of thing. So, just very, very organic. But I would say, I would think that kind of consultant and that kind of relationship and that kind of ambassador team pro, the one that I had, being quite intimate, I would say that that's pretty rare.
Mhm.
And the amount of the ability for the sites to disclose a lot of information is to the ambassadors and pros is just not very standard. It's kind of rare. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Joe Koulis, I think you had a question here.
Sorry, I got distracted by something. I do have a question. I thought I was doing later.
Well, here, let me set you up. So, Katie, we were talking before. You have such an interesting life, and you have, you've moved all around North America. You've married another professional poker player.
Yep.
You guys have a son together. I guess I was kind of curious, like what does growing up with two professional poker players do for a child's sense of like what a job is, or like what does the future hold? That kind of thing. It's a very unique perspective for a child, I think.
Yeah, for sure. It's a great question. It's something I thought a lot about, especially when my son was little. He's 9 now. He's in 3rd grade. And it's definitely something I thought a lot about when he was, 1, 2, 3 and getting into preschool. Fortunately, we lived in South Jersey and Brigantine. So, somebody who works in the gaming industry is not very rare, right? A huge part of that area is working in the casinos, whether they're, a professional player or a staff member. I had really made a decision, though, that when he was going to school and, if people were knowing me as a poker player, I kind of owed it to myself and to him to be as good as I possibly could be. And so I took off about 1.5 years post-pregnancy while I was nursing. and timed my comeback to be at the beginning of the World Series in 2017, so that I could just sweep online in New Jersey with everybody back in Vegas playing.
Amazing.
My husband swept. I had a break-even summer, and that was a big wake-up call for me. In that, that year and a half that I had taken off nursing, I was behind. And so I literally got 2 coaches in September and October of 2017 and mapped out my path to what I wanted to accomplish and what I wanted to achieve in poker. And yeah, you're right. There weren't a whole lot of women out there who had completed that, who had done that whole cycle that I had done, coming up as a, as a poker player, sponsored pro, team pro, commentator, marriage, baby, that whole thing. And then still, being very competitive, there's probably, you can count on one hand how many of us there were in the world at that point. Like you said, back in the day when we had to schedule series to talk about
Right.
women's, participation in poker, things have changed very quickly in the last, 5 years, which is amazing. But these days, it's interesting. My son doesn't know me as a poker player anymore, because in kindergarten, halfway through his kindergarten year is when I really made that transition into, taking a salary from the nonprofit. My board was very encouraging me to, be full-time, which I really needed to be with a staff here in Houston and everything. And I was traveling so much for poker and for commentating and playing and everything. And so, since kindergarten, he's been, watching me on TV. He's been seeing me, in newspapers. He's been, hearing his friends and his moms, the parents of, the little kids in his class and stuff, talk about me, because my mother was just a very, very, very well-known figure here for a long time. And it was a very public transition into stepping into that role here in Houston. And so what he sees mommy as doing is what the family legacy is, which is feeding people. So mommy feeds millions of people every year, which is truly what I do, because we have the largest food bank in the world here in Houston. And my mother's foundation is responsible. We are their largest donor every single year. And so that's a pretty big responsibility. The reason that happens, though, what manufactures that is a whole other animal that is just kind of a very unique thing that happens here in Houston every year that my mother created. But that's what he sees mommy as, is he sees mommy as feeding people, and daddy is the poker player.
Okay, that's really
Yeah.
interesting. I didn't know we had that common interest in combating food insecurity and supporting food banks, but that doesn't surprise me. I'm really glad to hear it.
Yeah, for sure.
Joe, you had some follow-up, I think.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask a follow-up about keeping your kid grounded, but it sounds like you do a good job of that by focusing them in on things. So I'm actually more interested in terms of your role as a foundation president. I have my own foundation that I run that I want to talk about. It's not relevant to the conversation, except for, being the president of foundations requires you to have a lot of different skill sets that actually poker isn't very helpful for. And, being on television is somewhat helpful for, in terms of advertising, and you can pull from, but then you have all these other things, financial management, getting people to give money is very, very difficult to do. It would seem easy, but people tend to hold on to their money pretty tightly. So how did you take the skills that you learned doing a lot of other things and transform them into something that requires a lot of different skills?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of, everybody's experience in poker and in business and in life is different, right? I mean, I really felt like that my poker skill set was quite favorable to what I was doing. There's a lot that goes into nonprofit fundraising. It's a totally different world. But at the end of the day, fundraising is just a numbers game, you know? And when you understand, you know, so much about what fundraising is also relationships and finding the value in areas that your competitors, maybe other nonprofits, may not be seeing. How do you find that value? Well, it's a good skill set to be able to put yourself in the shoes of the other player and figure out what they're doing and what they want. You know, every single one of these things I just described is what we're doing at the poker table. You know, the very first thing that I'm doing at the poker table is, you know, in my little 3-step, you know, analysis before I play a hand, is the very first thing I'm doing is I'm understanding who my opponent is. Am I playing an amateur player or am I playing a professional player? This is not, I would say, the standard first thought to somebody who would be just in a regular, you know, standard 9-to-5 nonprofit person, you know, going out and looking for money from another org or for something. They're, you know, that ability to step into the shoes, that the perspective of the other person is maybe the most important skill set in life, truly, you know. It's probably the most important ability in business, you know, understanding what the other person wants. It's a pretty valuable thing in poker, pretty valuable thing in poker too, right? What's the overall, you know, goal of poker? Trying to figure out what your opponents have, you know. So you see, all of these things are actually very, 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 very similar. And, you know, I'm a huge believer now that, you know, my limited experience in fundraising, you know, I'm 5 years right now, but, you know, I grew up with my mother. You know, this event, this nonprofit is kind of like my sibling. You know, when she created it in 2003, it was just me and her doing it, you know. But, you know, my opinion now that I'm, you know, 5 years, you know, at the helm, so to speak, and you know, managing all of these different pieces on the board. You know, you have production, you have TV presence, you have social media teams, you have PR teams, you have, you know, donors, you know, you have financial, you know, teams, you have legal teams. You know, I think from being an online MTTer and from being able to juggle so many things, and think about a lot of things at the same time, clearly, you know, that has helped me, you know, manage all of those pieces at the same time, and to be able to kind of zoom out and see the entire board in play and to see where everything can go and what they can do. I also think that, you know, this, you know, the mentality of being a no limit hold'em, you know, poker player is somewhat of a, you know, you're living in a world of no limits, right? Like you are uncapped in everything you do. That mindset permeates the rest of your life. I don't care what anybody says. You know, that mindset is quite valuable in this world, you know, being the perceived understanding of being uncapped. You know, the understanding that there is great value ahead, you know, for small, consistent investments or small steps or small good moves. You know, maybe it's quite down the line, but, you know, these are all just very, 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 very helpful skill sets that transfer over. And I'm a huge proponent now of people quitting poker and getting into nonprofit. You know, I did another podcast, I think exactly about this a few months ago. Just just like a month ago in Berkey's. Yeah. The transitional qualities of poker into, you know, other areas that I think work really well, that you may not have immediately thought would work well, you know?
Yeah, I think that beyond saying that, you know, clearly our podcast is so much better than Berkey's because we came out, I put this question on our own as well, but is seeing people for who they are, right? In terms of what really motivates people in comparison to what it is that people think motivates people, creates the opportunities that you talked about. And it's kind of like, that's what I thought you might say about how poker plays. So our poker skills transfer particularly into the business world. So, but
yeah, and
it's fun.
It's fun for me too, because, like I was telling, my board chair, who is, my uncle, my mother's brother, but he's one of those private wealth, guys in Morgan Stanley in New York, and, numbers, like, numbers, Wall Street bro guy, like that. And, but we speak the same language at the root, right? Like, he was the first one to embrace my transition from chess into poker in 2005 by handing me a book on game theory and said, here, my partner wrote this, read this book, but it's like, I want to win, I'm very competitive, right? So like, just because I'm in this new realm doesn't mean I don't want to win, right? So like, I go through and I see like, okay, what are standard operating expenses for a nonprofit, okay, so I can see 25 to 35% across the board is standard, well, I don't want to be in that, I want to win. I want to totally outperform the entire market of operational expenses. So I come in, I'm at 16.5%. And I shout it from the rooftops, and that's a win for me, because I'm coming in here and doing things possibly better, or finding value, or finding different ways to do things, than some of the other people that have been in this game for a long time. Well, I'm not looking to them, for example. I'm looking to myself. I'm taking things that I've learned in my previous career, and I'm putting some new ideas into what I'm doing, and it's been successful so far. So it's for me, it's a game, it's, I mean, it's just it's a race to the top of the tournament leaderboard for me. Y'all know it's just in my blood, like I can't get it out. I just got to trade it in for a different language. Like, okay, now this is the new game I'm playing. It's just, now it's, a much bigger game.
I'll end with, I'm competitive. People who know me know I'm competitive, and I just have to point out our operating expenses are 15%.
Oh, good. Yeah, there you go.
We're much smaller, but anyway, I really appreciate your answer. That was
great.
No,
for sure.
Yeah. Speaking of playing a different game and playing games generally, Kim Kilroy, I think you had your next question.
Oh, hi, Katie.
Hey, Kim.
You say you're a recreational poker player now. I just wondered, like, do you still coach? How much do you play? And do you study? And if so, how much time do you spend studying? And what does your study time look like?
Yeah, so I haven't done a ton of studying or playing in the last couple of years. It's taken me, it's taken all of my bandwidth to kind of get this ship, secure and safe and ready for the rough seas of 2025, as we all know it, kind of thing. And just in general, overall, I mean, it was a massive life change for me, obviously moving my family from, New Jersey to Houston. And so I haven't done a ton of study. Now, I still am going to Vegas. I'm there mostly in June. I can't, unfortunately, play the main anymore because I have to be in Houston no later than like July 6th or 7th of every year. And so I can only play the, like the ladies. I went deep in that last year. I was speaking at the TDA summit And I had to go early in the TEA summit because I was in day 3 of the ladies with 36 left. And so I like spoke, and it's on YouTube, by the way. So I spoke, I did my piece, and then like I ran out. So that was fun. I do work a little bit with Octopi Poker, and I've been working with that for study purposes, for my own purposes. And then I do coach a few ladies one-on-one. And, you know, that's kind of the extent right now and what has been for the last few years of my poker activity. But that's been very intentional because I've needed that bandwidth to get, like I said, everything here stable and moving in the way that it needs to be moving, you know, so that I can go somewhere for the whole month of April, for example, or I can go and travel somewhere. I wouldn't say that I'm done with poker as far as a, you know, like a main part of my life, but I'm definitely done with poker as my full-time income for sure. I happen to live very close to Champions here in Houston, which is a club that is run by a couple of guys and started, and it's a very good, it's just a good group. You know, they're doing things the right way. They're, you know, not always the most profitable way, but the most legal way, if you know what I mean. And they're taking the long road and at a loss intentionally. And, you know, they're just a really, just a great group to watch for the future. And they happen to be 3 miles away from, you know, from my office and my house. So I do a little bit of commentating with them, and I just kind of stay connected. I think I'm going to start doing some like ladies, like Sadie's classes there, just because I think it's such a great, you know, like they have like the Poker Go Tour and they have the mains, like the $3,300 mains and stuff, and they have great Sadies, but there's such an art and such a you know, a science and a math problem to playing satellites, especially live satellites, that just giving the ladies a little bit extra tools would just go a long way. And I mostly focus on coaching ladies, by the way. So yeah, I would say that, you know, in summer 2019, when my life was turned upside down and I got that phone call that, you know, nobody ever wants to get. I mean, I was certainly at, you know, my peak in my career, for sure. Had, you know, my winningest years online and, you know, live, and that year, you know, 18, 19, 20, 21, which is saying something, because that was, you know, poker was getting exponentially harder every single year. But there's such, you know, good study tools now. And so I just, you know, I have to just be really more refined and focused about what I do play. And so I can't grind. I'm not going to play online. There's no way in hell I'll play online. And I'll just play some select, you know, higher buy-in live tournaments. I have a, you know, little Zoom call with Victoria Liveshits tomorrow to, you know, just kind of shoot the shit about, you know, Octopi and everything. And, you know, just slowly but surely I'm kind of getting my way back into, you know, my path, which was, you know, I mean, ultimately I was, you know, on my way to the big buy-in tournaments at some point. You know, hopefully I'll get back there.
Yeah, thanks for that. I hope we run into each other down the road.
Good to see you, Kim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'll just remind our YouTube chatters, we've got time for a few more questions. So if you've got questions for Katie, get them in there. And again, stick around. We're going to support a local food bank with our raffle. I also want to mention, speaking about supporting great causes, if you go to rec.poker/support, you can find some great ways to help us out, or support some charities that our Wrecking Crew members are fond of as well. So go to rec.poker/support to find that out. And if you'd like to make a donation directly through the YouTube chat, we do share a portion of any super chats, super comments, or super stickies with a local food bank as well. So there's lots of ways to help us out and to help out a local food bank. We do have one question from the YouTube chat already. This is from Benny the Jet, who says, I'm curious as to why you decided to go with a private Twitter account.
Oh, am I private right now?
I think so.
Yeah, I'm mostly private these days, just because it's an attention thing. You know, like I can't take social media off of my phone. I can't get it out of my life because I manage a very prominent social media platform here in Houston with a lot of, 15 different presences, on different accounts. And so it's just kind of like my own personal block of blocking notifications and blocking interactions, because if I'm public, anything that I say, anybody can see it, and that's fine, but it just incurs a lot more activity. And I tend to tweet in the morning when I'm like supposed to be getting ready to like get out of the house and get to the office. I'm like, oh, somebody did this. And then it can take your day, like you can just be notified the whole day. And I'm just like, I can't deal with this, so that's the reason why most of the time it's just for my own personal, like I have to, and I know you can turn notifications off and whatever, but it doesn't, I'll know that they're there and I'll go, it's like, don't bring the chips home, like don't bring the donuts home, just
Right.
out of the house,
Protect yourself.
lock the door, like that's what it is. But yeah, like sometimes like I will, if it's a big issue or something and I've got an opinion about it, and if somebody else is tagged in there that's not following me, I'll go public just for like half the day or something, just so that, at least a few people can see it, or the targeted person can see it. And I mean, it's never mean. It's not like nasty or anything. It's just, it's just like my opinion on something, as if anybody cares, to see it. But,
no, that's one of the things I wanted to ask you about, because you've posted quite a bit about sort of putting a priority on the experience that players have, about growing the game, about like marketing effectively to poker players and marketing to non-poker players. I guess, do you have some thoughts just generally on the importance of those subjects?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think that in general, I mean, look, like it's hard to see this stuff if you're in like the poker bubble. It's a lot easier to see it if you're outside the poker bubble. And so, like I used to be the person who would be hustling through Borgata and like resentful towards the customers in the casino in the walkways because they were taking up too much space and I needed to get to the goddamn tournament. And who the hell were these people? Like, why couldn't casinos have special express lanes for professional poker players? These are real thoughts that would go through my mind when I was in the poker bubble, right? And so, I think if I had to make one statement, I would say that poker as a product is not yet ready to be pitched to the worldwide audience. So I think what we're seeing here is everything that we see in poker that is either created, or whether it's an online poker site, or it's a live operator, or it's a content creator, none of it is ready. Like none of it's finished. It's because the product is not yet 100% refined and packaged correctly for worldwide consumption. And so what's happened is so much of what comes out about poker, whether it's Poker News, Poker.org, WPT, Poker Stars, any poker related content, any of these influencers, content creators, they're creating for such a small audience. They're creating for the existing player pool. And if you think about it, it's just like literally throwing money down the toilet. It's such a losing proposition because you're fighting for such a tiny portion of such a tiny market, and it really is just incredible that any money is directed in this way, or any energy or talent is directed in this way, and is not directed in, hey, look, we're going to be investing in this platform that we have. We're going to be investing in this tour that we have. We're going to be investing in this newsletter that we have. We're going to be investing in this production that we have. It's to our benefit to get as many eyes, on the product. It's to our benefit to get as many butts in seats, right? So how do we best market this? Well, we try to market it as make it as palatable as possible, right? what's happening now is it's just like an argument over like these tiny fragmented, areas of the industry. And it's just absurd. It's just insane. I don't know that anybody is really caring about that, because there's such a short-term need for the people to pay their bills, right? And so the advertisers are paying for them to create this click-worthy content or covering something or whatever. And so I get that there's no real like overarching organization or benefactor or sponsor that is like, hey guys, let's really think about the health of the poker economy. Let's think about the environment. Like, let's think about, what are the long-term effects of the decisions that we're making? And, I probably lucked out in that, when I was up at MGM, the person that I, directly reported to, he had a pretty unique and a view about poker players and the economy and the investment in poker. He kind of viewed it a little bit differently from his counterparts and his competition. And he was, and that was odd and different. And some could say maybe it was personal. He just loved poker because poker is at the bottom of their price sheet, right? Like their profit, sheet. Poker is the very, very bottom. So why would you care? But I think it's because he did see the potential. He saw that poker as a casino game was so innately different from all of the other casino games because you're playing against humans. And so that's where you had this room to grow. And that's where you had this implied, value that just people weren't really seeing. And so he was kind of known for taking shots and taking risks and that kind of thing. But, his view was really of a very one that really was very caring about the economy of the poker player economy. And so we did things like we would cap reentries at 2 reentries or 3 reentries, for every single tournament. Whereas every single other site was unlimited reentries. And this was something that, we, being in a ring-fenced market at the time, it was something that we really thought very strongly about. And now, we're seeing the ramifications of BetMGM Poker just crushing, being the online, regulated leader now. And I believe it is because that foundation that we implemented of, having really good structures, having, really good, just the structure around the tournaments, cut off for late reg and all of these things that, the different, even the different tournament levels, all of these things that play into the experience of the player. We were thinking about that way, before I think a lot of these other, not to say that they weren't, but we were implementing it in a way that a lot of these other sites just weren't. I mean, none of them were. Nobody was capping reentries online. And so, it's a, content is your bet. It can be your best friend and it can be your worst nightmare, right? It can change the game. It can do wonders for you. I think that poker is in a really tough spot right now in that it's, I think a lot of people think that it's growing. I don't think that it's growing. I think anecdotally it's growing. I think locally from our local, rooms and stuff that we see. But I mean, online is just a mess. I mean, it's just a cesspool, live numbers are down across the board. I don't care what anybody says. They're not up. Okay. Live numbers are not up. You see a lot of, movement going on in online and live operators leaving countries. And we all know why that happens. And that's fine because, maybe they're trying to not get arrested. Maybe they're trying to, get themselves in line for regulation down the road. But poker is not in a good state right now. And you look at, things like the World Series of Poker and this was something that I commented on, that you were mentioning, you see that it's solvers and it's GTO Wizard is and the Poker Go and everything. And having a solver brand greeting new players. These are the most valuable, addition to the player pool is a new player. To be greeting them with solvers on poker's biggest, most, widely broadcast event is just a big mistake. However, it's not anything they can do anything about because they don't have any other sponsors. They, when I was tweeting about that and just kind of pointing out, like, look, like this is really bad, and here's why. The Poker Go advertising people actually, messaged me and we got on the phone, and they were like, look, like we send out, 1,000 emails a day, and we've tried this, we try to do this, we try to do this, and just nobody bites. They have no other options. And I could have, look, like I'm not going to tell somebody how to do their business, but I understand why they can't sell, because the product of poker is not ready to sell. You can't sell the product unless it's ready, right? And so it's just a losing battle. And so the product has to get better. The holes have to be plugged in the ship. You can't have all this online cheating. You can't have all these operators just not caring about RTAing and collusion and cheating. You can't have live operators dragging their feet for years on taking a swift stand on cheaters. Champions here in Houston is the only live operator that said, get out, Ali M. Sarovic. You're a confirmed cheater. You are not welcome in our live realm. No one else in the US has had the guts to do it. I mean, it's absurd, And so Poker Go and WSOP will not have an easy time getting sponsors until poker as an industry, as a product, is just a better product. How do you get it to be a better product? I mean, I have a lot of thoughts on that. This is a 45-minute podcast, though. But I mean, it's
top one or top three in 30 words or less. What are some ways that we can improve the product? The biggest gains.
Yeah, I think one of the ways that you can improve the product is by realizing that poker at its root is hospitality on the worldwide basis, because the largest player pool that exists, and I would imagine that you guys would agree with this, is the recreational player pool, or how I like to call them, the optional player pool, right? This is the largest player pool. The smallest player pool is the ones who are the professionals, right? The ones who already know, they're already in the pond. We don't need to, and so, understanding that there is this opportunity to convert players very easily. So let me give you this example, and this can kind of translate into what I'm trying to say. Let's say we go to a restaurant, okay? And we have these like high expectations for this restaurant, and just you're translating this into like a poker experience, okay? And the food is okay. It's like, it's not the greatest. I mean, it's okay. But the service is amazing, right? Like the service is out of this world, like just right on top of you. Like your water was never, you never had to flag them down. They just like, it was almost like they were in your mind, right? Parking was amazing, and inside of the restaurant's amazing. Lighting is good, everything, But the food was okay. Okay. Now let's go to another experience. Food is outstanding. Outstanding. Maybe one of the best meals of your life. But a real asshole server, and a real asshole, and parking was terrible, and the valet guy stunk up the car and changed the seat and turned the radio, and you got a ticket, and yada, 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 and the babysitter, showed up late, and yada, 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 whatever. Guess what? You're more likely to go back to the shitty food restaurant because your experience was better than you are to go back to the food that was the better quality, right? Okay, now, how does this equate? Players' experience matters more than if they win or lose, right? So once everybody understands that that's the game that we're playing in poker, like we want poker players to have a good experience. Once we know that that's the rules that we're playing by, that then allows us to adjust the gaming experience. And so I think that that's just a really big area that's missing. You know, we all have been to poker rooms all over the world, right? Like we've all, you know, had a lot of different experiences. But I would venture to say, at least in this country, as soon as I walk in the poker room inside Aria, Bellagio, Bossier City, California, Atlantic City, whatever, hospitality stops. It literally stops at the poker room door. And your experience as a player is very different versus if you were playing another game or if you were in the restaurant. But why? It shouldn't be, but it is. And this is what I spoke about last summer at the TDA summit that took place at the Poker Go studio. And that's also on YouTube. This was one of the things that I spoke about is operators now more than ever are looking for more and new optional players. They need them now more than ever, and they're going to need them in this year, maybe more so than getting back to COVID. We're in for a bumpy ride. And so finding ways to enhance the experience for the player is how poker will survive. If you cannot enhance the experience, poker will die. It's getting too hard for the casual player. The AI, the real-time assistance is allowing people to get a lot better, a lot faster than they ever have before. The recreational, the occasional, the optional, the amateur poker players are at disadvantages now more than ever, especially online. They're going to get eaten up. They're going to have a bad experience faster than they would before because of the prevalence of all of this bullshit, and nobody's doing anything about it. So now the opportunity shifts into the live realm. This is the only way poker can survive, is the live realm now, right? Like this is a very, very different tune than I was singing 5 years ago. Poker's ability to survive depends on live gaming. And at the root, it's their hospitality. It's the experience that they have from a hospitality standpoint. And that's how they will win. That is the only way to win. So whoever figures that out first will win. Champions is figuring it out. They started with, in their gaming management, they didn't get gaming guys to manage to oversee their poker room. They got fine dining 5-star hotel guys to manage that. They went a whole different route. And, you know, you can say that these, you know, these high level hospitality and hotel people and fine dining people exist. You know, they come over from Vegas, they come over from East Coast and stuff like that, but they're not in the poker rooms, right? They're not in the poker industry. They're going to a bigger pool. They're going to a bigger game. They're not coming to poker. And that's a big part that's missing. And so that's, you know, just another way that, you know, we'll see what happens, you know, but that's a really, really big one.
We've got a great comment in the YouTube chat from Neil Jaworski saying, this is why everyone loves the win. The games aren't great, but they give a top-notch experience. Yeah, that's been consistent with my understanding as well. Joe Coolis, you had a follow-up, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this comes from when I started playing poker in terms of, you know, what people perceive as being how people want to play the game. And what you're kind of describing is essentially a gentrification of the game, like taking out the outlaw versions of it, taking out a lot of the, you know, tough, rough guy coming to the table and playing a tough game that's based on all guts and glory and turning it into something that's a great experience. You have chips, you play, you bet, and it's a lot of different fun. How would you see pulling out that outlaw aspect of the game in this concept of making it an experience that, again, is really catering to a more moneyed population?
Yeah, and what you're saying too is, and some might say that what I'm describing is an unnatural request, right? Like it's not possible for the game to be appreciated or experienced in this way. I'm not saying to delete anything. You can have all the rough and tumble poker bros. You can have all the, you know, the grinders you want. There's a space for them. What I'm saying though is that there is been zero emphasis on the new player acquisition, and because it's the long haul, because it's expensive, because it requires effort and nobody wants to do it, but that's the win, right? And so I would argue that we're not deleting anybody. I think that it's a big enough space, but what I'm saying is there needs to be some adjustments to make the optional player, the new player, the focus, instead of, I would say 50-50. Like, you know how you guys always see me, at least for the last, you know, how many years, asking for poker media coverage as 50-50, you know, gender, 50-50 women, 50-50 men, and they have done it. You know, Poker News and Poker.org, for the most part of the last few years, they have done it. And so it's, you know, it's just, it takes somebody saying, okay, we are going to do this. We are going to make this a priority. We are going to focus our, you know, 30% of our content that we create. I mean, this is what I would do. Like if I was the editor of Poker News, or if I was running, you know, the online content for any kind of, you know, poker presence, you know, that's what I would say. I would say, okay, 35% of everything that comes out of your account must be geared towards the complete new player, like as if they have never played the game before. Create content to grab them, to entice them, to capture their interest. And don't try to be cool. Don't try to impress your friends, your other influencer friends. You know, don't try to jump on that, you know, cliquish kind of, because, you know, and I guess that's a question I have for you guys is, you know, my view is that in this kind of inherent nature of poker being what I like to call in niche captivity, I think a major barrier, a major, you know, reason that niche captivity exists is because there's such a small pool of influencers, ambassadors that kind of just, you know, intentionally keep things small. The content that they create is very niche, so it's not widely understood by a wide audience. It's like somebody has to really be following them in a lot of cases to understand who they're talking about or what they're talking about. Even the poker terminology, the more advanced poker terminology that we understand comes from solver land, right? And then it trickles down and becomes mainstream poker language at some point, right? That's not a good thing. Why they all think it makes sense to infuse poker content and solver language, I will never know. I will never understand this. It blows my mind. It's like we're talking two different languages. It's literally like they're talking two different languages. Because you're trying to make somebody laugh, you're trying to attract new customers, new players, but then you're also trying to do it with something that they don't understand. And not only do they not understand it, they're going to feel bad. You're going to make them feel bad and closed out because they don't understand it. And I guess that's my question to you. Am I off on that? Do you guys see that as a like a thing?
Can I chime in?
Yeah.
Yeah, jump in.
Katie Stone, you are a legend. I have been waiting so long. This is Rob Gardner. I'm producing behind the scenes. I have been waiting so long to hear people say stuff like this, and I literally, if I could give you a standing ovation right now, I would. Could not agree more with anything that you're saying, and I just want to say kudos, and hopefully more people will speak out because you're dead on.
Oh God! Well, thank you so much.
I don't think you have to look very far to see the recapitulation of all of this pattern with a variety of things. You can see it in video gaming. You can see it in you know, in stock market and financial markets. You can see it all the time in terms of the individuals within the in group that you say the captivity develop a language and they use it to exclude other people. And you know, behind the scenes, we were talking about sets versus trips, right? people at the poker table will come in and yell at you about not knowing that specific terminology. And, and people will just be like, I don't know. And even in medical fields, you have to pull past that in order to make it accessible to people. And if it's not accessible to people, they'll just reject it. They won't play. So I don't think you have to.
Yeah.
It's not just a poker thing. It's very much just how these develop.
Yeah. And so it's, I guess, and so what it is it's the decision to highlight that part of it, right? Like it's the decision to highlight the niche of the niche of the niche of the niche, because I know why. I know I used to be it. Like, I get it. Like I've done the whole cycle of it all. So like I've been through the whole, emotions and feelings and like, what do you want to do and be and everything. It's so hard. Poker's so hard. And it's so hard to find wins, like especially as a professional and if you're making money from it. And so at the root, it's just like, it's an overall, like an acceptance issue, right? Like it's wanting to know things and be knowledgeable about things and be good. And you want to make people like the content and you want to impress people. And so it's a misguided attempt to do their job. And it's misguided from above too, because like I said, there's no overarching, like, like the Olympics has like International Olympic Committee or whatever. Like there's no overarching, think tank or PR company. There's individual lobbying efforts around the country and stuff like that, but there's no overarching brain or set of brains that's saying, all right, guys, like, what do we think is good? What if we want to take this product and go from this to this, what do we do? How do we do that? That's not happening. And if it did, it might be a different game, right? It might be just a different game. But why they are not willing to admit this is just mind blowing.
I think that, if you look at the restaurant industry, you can see where it comes from, is that you have to maintain some sort of base that comes in game after game. And that's what they've decided to double down on, because there's risk involved in it and expanding it out. And I'm getting the hook, so I'm going to wrap it up because I could talk about this forever, but I do think you're onto something in terms of the perspective of how, if you're going to grow the game, you got to do something different besides just appeasing the base and keeping them paying, because they'll eventually either die or run out of money, to be honest, or be so good at the game that nobody wants to play with them.
Right.
Yeah. Katie, we've got 100 more questions we could ask you. You've already been here for longer than you agreed to in the first place. I do have a couple more questions if you can stick around for just a few more minutes.
I'm fine. I'm in my office, so the longer
wonderful.
I stay, the better, because that means my husband does bedtime with Luke.
Nice. Okay, fantastic.
I'm working.
Well, you've got some real fans in the YouTube audience. That's true.
Oh, good.
And clear a lot of folks saying Katie Stone is cooking in here. It sounds like that's right, which is appropriate because Katie is also the host of a weekly live TV show, Foodies and Friends, which airs every Wednesday at 3:00 on Fox 26 down there in Houston. And we've already kind of mentioned, like, food is important to what we do here. We actually always support a local food bank. And if you're in the YouTube chat, if you start typing the words food bank into the chat right now, you'll be entered into our raffle, which we're going to give away a prize right after the interview. I just want to say that the reason that we always just beat the drum for supporting food banks around here is that it's a very difficult time in the world for a lot of people. And if you can reach into if you pull out your smartphone and Google food banks near me, you'll find an organization that could really benefit from a few dollars out of your pocket, a few volunteer hours out of your week, or some non-perishable food items from your pantry. And so I would encourage everyone, please do pull out your phone, just Google food banks near me, and consider making a donation to help out your neighbor and someone in your community. You might be surprised who needs a little help right now. And we just like to say the word food bank about 15 or 20 times every episode, and maybe get some subliminal support in there. But yeah, type the words food bank into the YouTube chat, and then you'll be drawn. We'll draw a prize. We'll draw a winner for a fantastic prize. And I got to pull in our RecPoker Santa, Rob Washam. What's the fantastic prize you're going to pull out of your bag of tricks this week, Rob?
Well, Our prize tonight is a free month of RecPoker Premium. Now, if you're already a premium member, you can choose from one of our available learning partners, which include Tournament Poker Edge, the Poker Forge, Red Chip Poker, PokerCoaching.com, Jaka Coaching, or Learn Pro Poker.
Or Solve for Why.
Well, we can't give away a free month of Solve for Why, Jim.
Oh, I threw you under the bus there, Rob. Sorry.
Yeah,
They're
you
a great
really
learning
did.
partner, though. Okay.
You really shouldn't have said that. But
Oh,
anyway.
damn it. Okay. Whoops.
And to learn more about our learning partners, you can click on resources and learning partners to get more information.
Thanks, Rob.
Sure.
Okay. Well, this has been a really interesting conversation, Katie. I'd love to have you back another time and really talk more about this sort of stuff. Because I think you've got some great insights, and I think the game needs people talking about this kind of stuff and being thoughtful and planning for this in advance. Because we think that there's this sort of magical quality about poker, and it'll always be here and it'll always be competitive and fair. And that's just naive. And it's not, we're not entitled to it. So we really have to make efforts and make changes and make the game as great as we can for those that are coming into it, or else they're going to find something else to do with their time.
I mean, and you guys are really doing that here with this podcast too. Like, I mean, with this new perspective too, just comes a new perspective, like on what efforts like yours are and how important they are, right? Like, I think that people don't automatically assume that this podcast could be one of the most important podcasts in the poker industry. And so it's something that I don't think they're there yet. I see that as, what should happen, or what already is, even if people don't realize it. But it's just this understanding that the wider the audience that we can, bring the game to without complicating the game, is really how it's going to survive. And so, like if I had my way on poker streams, I would be in charge of the graphics also. And I would get rid of probably 75% of the graphics on the screen. And I'm talking to champions about just doing a different kind of poker streams, because so much of the poker stream and the commentary has evolved from, Solverland, right? As everybody's gotten better, we understand the things that we're looking at. And so we just naturally think that everybody wants to look at that stuff. Well, no, they don't. And nor do they need to. And have we ever considered that it's possibly preventing them from becoming a poker fan because they don't feel like being in front of a math problem at 2:00 in the morning, and so it's kind of I get pretty heated about it because it's like, how does everybody not see this? Like, why is this the product that we're putting, front facing to the world when we just don't have a shot at winning or succeeding, So y'all are doing a great job. Like, really, seriously, this is the future of poker. Seriously, recreational poker is absolutely the future of poker. And, I would just continue to lean into all of the fun things about poker. Like, really, I mean, just, I would not encourage people to make, poker their living or their income. I would encourage people to be very understanding that this is something to, pass the time and have fun. But you do need to keep your day job, because the odds are just so against you in so many ways. And when the regulators and the operators, don't have your best interests at heart, how can you expect to play in a fair game, so it's such doom and gloom, but we all love poker. We're not going to stop playing, we just got to try and make some changes, so.
Well, very well said. And I'm not just saying that because it was so complimentary of our efforts here. I do think that's true. And I do think being a recreational player is the best way to enjoy poker. That's a drum I'm going to keep banging as long as I can. So Thank you so much for your passion and your insights and sharing your experience with us. So we play a little game at the end of every show called Stake, Study, Stack. I don't know if you played Kiss, Marry, Kill when you were a child. This is a similar game. I'm going to give you 3 names, and we are hoping that you can choose one that you can stake in a cash game or a tournament, one that you will study with to improve your own play as a player, and one that you'd like nothing more than to just take all their chips right on the felt and just stack them and turn the world upside down. These are 3 names that I think you have some familiarity with. Jamie Kerstetter, Katie Dozier, and Jen Shahade. Have you heard of these 3 fantastic women in the world of poker by any chance? Katie Stone?
Yes, original Grindettes.
The Grindettes.
The Grindettes. So I think I would probably oh man, this is tough.
Yeah, it's tough, right? This is meant to be difficult. This is the hardest part of the interview, right?
This is so tough. Oh my gosh. Okay. I think I would probably oh my gosh. It's so funny because I have literally staked, stacked, and studied with every single one of these girls. So that's the problem.
Nice.
Okay. I would study with Jen because Jen and I have probably done the most studying together anyway. So I'd study with Jen. I would stake Katie Dozier and I would stack Jamie Kerstetter because because Katie Dozier and I have already been heads up in a tournament before where I won. I got lucky. So I'll stack Jamie. She can afford it. she's got a big job now with Global, so she can afford to get stacked these days.
Great answer. All right, well, Katie, we kind of mentioned that you're protecting your bandwidth on Twitter a little bit, but if folks want to reach out and say, hey, thanks for coming on the RecPoker podcast, what's a nice way for them to connect with you? Is it on socials? Do you have a newsletter? Subscribe to a show? What's the best way that our listeners can kind of improve your life and say thanks?
Yeah, I mean, if you can always request to follow me on Twitter. I'm Katie Poker on Instagram as well, and you can always just send me a DM. I don't have anything to promote or any newsletters or anything, but I'm always there to follow. If you have a question or anything, I'm pretty open with anybody who has questions about anything in the industry. A few times a year, I'll put like a call to action for my own, just like if anybody needs advice about things or so yeah, I'm always happy to help and share the information kind of to translate, things as the industry continues to get murkier and murkier. So yeah.
Well, keep being a bright light in the poker world. And again, I really appreciate you sharing your time and your expertise with us this week. And I have a feeling we're going to be talking again at some point in the future, and I'm already looking forward to it.
Sounds good. And you guys keep it up as well. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Katie Stone, everybody. And like I'll say, I'll put that link to her show notes and link to her socials in the show notes. And I hope folks go and connect with her there. We are going to do our food bank raffle in just a second and give away a fantastic prize. First, I just want to mention that April is right around the corner and the MSPT is coming to Running Aces. So if you want to find out more details about the next major poker series that's going to be at our sponsor casino's venue, you can go to runaces.com and find out all the dates for that. But the MSPT and Running Aces, that's a powerful combination. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. So I will encourage our listeners, if you're in the area of the Twin Cities, go check that one out. Now, let's give away a freaking prize. Rob Gardner, our invisible producer, will you please bring up the wheel of fame and fortune? Whoa, don't have a lot of people guessing this week. We had like 30 viewers, but only a few putting their name in. Let's see who's going to be the winner of our fantastic prize this week. While it's spinning, folks, just saying, come and show up in the RecPoker podcast. You got a 1 in 6 chance of winning something fantastic. Ginger. No stranger to the winners show over here at RecPoker. Ginger.
Nice, Ginger.
Way to go. So, Ginger, please send your email to info@rec.poker to claim your fantastic prize. And I think we're just going to roll on out of here. So I want to make a big thanks to Katie Stone for being a fantastic guest, Kim Kilroy, Rob Washam, Chris Jones, Lorianne Persinger, and Joe Coolis. All our fantastic folks in the YouTube chat, and some new names. Thanks for tuning in, folks. I hope we see you next week as well. Got to thank Running Aces, our listeners at home. We couldn't do it without you. I will see you next week on the RecPoker podcast. Good night, everybody.
Bye.